Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our Bible study. Thank you also for taking the time to like, to comment, and subscribe to our channel. If you haven't done that yet, please subscribe and turn on the notification so that you can receive notifications every time we post a video. This Bible study is also available in French and Creole on our channel. If you'd like to listen in a different language, please go to the channel and pick the language you'd like to listen to. Cette étude biblique est également disponible en français et en créole sur notre chaîne. Si vous souhaitez écouter dans une autre langue, rendez-vous sur la chaîne et choisissez la langue que vous aimeriez écouter. Étude biblique ça disponible tout en français et créole sur channel là. Si vous avez écouté dans une autre langue, tant pis, allez sur channel là et puis choisissez langue où vous avez écouté. May God bless us as we set aside some time to study His Word. In this Bible study, we'll look at one of the most faithful and powerful servants of God, Daniel. Someone wrote, Daniel, a central figure in the Old Testament, is an exemplary model of faithfulness to God. His story, chronicled in the book of Daniel, is rich with instances that highlight his unwavering commitment to God's commandments, even in the face of immense pressure and danger. The narrative of Daniel's life is a testament to the power of steadfast faith and the blessings that follow those who remain true to God. Well said. Who was Daniel, and what are some of the lessons we can learn from his life and his unshakable faith in God? Daniel, also called Belshazzar, the Babylonian name, was one of the people that were taken from Jerusalem to Babylon. In Daniel chapter 1, we read that in the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. Then the king commanded Aspenaz, his chief eunuch, to bring some of the people of Israel, both of the royal family and of the nobility, youths without blemish, of good appearance and skillful in all wisdom. The king now assigned these youth, Daniel and his friends, a daily portion of the food that he ate and of the wine that the king drank. They were to be educated for 3 years, and at the end of that time, they were to stand before the king. Among these were Daniel, Ananiah, Mishael, and Azariah of the tribe of Judah. And the chief of the eunuchs gave them names. He changed their name. Daniel he called Belshazzar. Ananiah he called Shadrach. And Mishael he called Meshach. And Azariah he called Abednego. These youths were special, especially Daniel. Very early on, Daniel will set himself apart. His faithfulness in God and his leadership skills can be seen from the beginning of his time in Babylon. Most people would consider it an honor to be able to eat a daily portion of the food that the king ate and to drink a portion of the wine that the king drank, but not Daniel. Daniel resolved in Daniel chapter 1 verse 8 rather, Daniel chapter 1 verse 8 and following, he resolved that he would not defile himself with the king's food or with the wine that the king drank. The king assigned a portion of his food and a portion of his wine to these guys. What an honor. But Daniel says no, because this would defile me, so I don't want it. Therefore, he asked the chief eunuch to do something for him. He asked him to let him not eat that food that the king assigned to them, to rather let him drink just water. He asked the chief eunuch to allow him not to defile himself. Now, no need to say that God was pleased with the faith and the courage of this young man. So we read in verse 9, Daniel chapter 1 verse 9, God gave him favor and compassion in the sight of the chief of the eunuchs. And when the chief of the eunuchs was afraid that he would get in trouble if by only eating vegetables and drinking water these youths were malnourished, he would be in trouble with the king. When he was feeling that way, Daniel said to him, test us in 10 days. Give us 10 days to eat what we're asking for. And if they look bad, if we were to look bad compared to the other youths, then the eunuch could change their diet. Give us 10 days and test us and see if we look worse than the other guys or if we don't look better. The chief agreed to try. And at the end of 10 days, it was seen that they were better in appearance and fatter in flesh than all the youth who ate the king's food. So the steward took away their food and the wine they were to drink and give them only vegetables. Daniel chapter 1 verse 10 and following. So Daniel negotiated with the chief, give us 10 days to eat what we ask for. And if in 10 days we don't look all right to you, then you can change our diet. Then we'll eat whatever you want to give us. Daniel trusted in God. He knew that God would do what was necessary for them to look even better than the other guys. And that's what God did. Daniel's negotiation skills, all these skills in his persuasion paid off. So Daniel and his 3 friends were blessed in many ways. God blessed them. So we read in verse 17 of Daniel chapter 1, as for these 4 youths, God gave them learning and skill in all literature and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. And in every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king inquired them, he found them 10 times better than all of the magicians and enchanters that were in his kingdom. Verse 20. God was with these guys. He made them way better than whatever was there. So in Daniel chapter 2 verse 1 and following, we read that King Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. And he was troubled to know what that dream was and what it meant. The king called in all his magicians, all the enchanters, all the sorcerers, all the Chaldeans, nobody could help. When the king demanded an answer, these guys said that what the king was asking was difficult, and that only God could unveil such a mystery. Daniel chapter 2, verse 11. And they were right, because what the king was asking for, nobody could do. The king was not asking them to interpret the dream. He was asking them to tell him what he dreamed about. I had a dream yesterday. What was that dream about? And then explain to me what it means. They had to tell the king what dream he had. That wasn't easy. So they told the king that what the king was asking for was difficult, and that only God could unveil such a mystery. And that was true. Because of this, the king was angry and very furious, and commanded that all the wise men of Babylon be destroyed. Wow. And that would include Daniel and his companions. Because Daniel chapter 1 verse 17 told us that Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. So he was one of the guys who would be killed if the king could not get the answer to what he asked for. Indeed, what the king required was impossible to man, but not to God. With man, it is impossible, but not with God. For all things are possible with God. Jesus says in Mark chapter 10, verse 27. And what does James chapter 1, verse 5 say? If any one of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God. If any one of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him. Daniel, having understood that, went to God for the answer. When the king demanded an answer, Daniel went to God. And we read in Daniel chapter 2, verse 19, the mystery was revealed to him in a vision of the night. God revealed to Daniel what that was about, what dream the king had, and the meaning of that dream. Daniel, as a great servant, praised God. He praised the God of heaven, and he went to the king with the answer. He gave thanks to God. When God works, when God helps you, when God opens door for you, remember to give thanks to God. Daniel praised God and then went to the king. When the king heard that Daniel could tell him his dream and interpret it, the king declared Daniel in Daniel chapter 2, verse 26. He declared to Daniel, whose name was Belshazzar, are you able to make known to me the dream that I have seen and its interpretation? Verse 27, Daniel answered the king and said, no wise men, enchanters, magicians, or astrologers can show to the king the mystery that the king has asked. Nobody can do it. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. Daniel is telling this king about his God, the God that he serves. Nobody can do this, king. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. And he has made known to the king what will be in the latter days. Nobody can do what you ask for, king. But there is a God in heaven. He reveals mysteries. And he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the latter days. My friends, as we can see, Daniel, as a true servant, does not take the credit. Daniel does not take the credit. He does not tell the king, yes, I can tell you what you dream about and what it means. No. Daniel says, what you ask for, nobody, including me, can do this. God can, and God will. Verse 30, this mystery has been revealed to me, Daniel says, not because of any wisdom that I have. It's not about me. God is the one who deserves all praise, all glory. Daniel reveals the mystery. The king is happy, and Daniel gets a promotion. Another lesson we can learn from Daniel, not just his humility, not just his willingness to give thanks to God, but also that he was someone who did not forget his friends when things were good. Because when things were tough, when the king talked about that they need to kill all these guys who could not do the job, Daniel had asked his friends to join him with him in prayers to God. Now God had revealed the meaning to Daniel, and Daniel now gets a promotion. What do? Daniel did not forget his friends. So we read in Daniel chapter 2 verse 49. Lesson for us, my friends. Daniel made a request of the king, and he appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. Daniel asked the king to give something to honor his friends as well, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Daniel depended on these friends to help him. Things are good. Daniel gets a promotion. He asked the king to remember his friends as well. Daniel chapter 2, verse 49. And the king will give Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, he will put them over the affairs of the province of Babylon. In Daniel chapter 4, verse 1 and following, Daniel explains Nebuchadnezzar's second dream, which came to pass just as Daniel revealed it. In Daniel chapter 5, we find Daniel interpreting the handwriting on the wall for the new king, Belshazzar, telling him that time was up. His dream was time is up. And when Daniel interpreted that for Belshazzar, that very night, the Chaldean king was killed. And Darius the Mede received the kingdom, being about 62 years of age. In Daniel chapter 5, verse 30, verse 31. And Daniel chapter 6 now records God continued blessing upon Daniel. Daniel became distinguished above all the other high officials and satraps because an excellent spirit was in him. God was working through Daniel. The others were jealous. King Darius planned to set Daniel over the whole kingdom. Oh, that didn't go well with the people. Some people got jealous and wanted to hurt Daniel. But it was not easy, the Bible says. It was not easy to plot evil against Daniel. Why? Daniel chapter 6, verse 4 and verse 5 tell us that they could find no ground for complaint or any fault. Why? Because Daniel was faithful and no error or fault was found in him. Daniel was an upright guy. Then these men said, we shall not find any ground for complaint against this guy unless we find it in connection with the law of his God. There's no way we can find anything wrong with this guy. We better find something with the way he worships his God. And they managed to trap the king into inadvertently signing Daniel's death sentence. In Daniel chapter 6, verse 7 says, all the high officials of the kingdom, the prefects and the satraps, the counselors and the governors are agreed that the king should establish an ordinance and enforce an injunction that whoever makes petition to any god, small g god or man, for 30 days, except to you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions. The king doesn't understand that they are trying to catch Daniel. So they want everyone to pray only to the king as God. And anybody who did otherwise would be thrown into the lion's den. And you know the rest of the story. Daniel continued to pray to his God, the great God of the universe, Jehovah God. And so Daniel was thrown into the lion's den. Lessons again for us. Daniel didn't care about what men had written in regards to worship. Worship is about God. It's about pleasing God. So anything that men would do contrary to what God says is to be rejected. All Daniel cared about was what God said. And he knew that God said in Exodus chapter 20, verse 3 to verse 6, you shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth or beneath the earth. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. Daniel knew that God said no, not to do that. And so Daniel continued to get down on his knees 3 times a day to pray and give thanks to God as usual. Daniel had faith that the God of heaven whom he served was able to deliver him from the lion's den. And so God did. Daniel was not an undercover servant of the Lord. Daniel let his light shine for God, that even the king was aware of Daniel's faithfulness. Remember what Daniel chapter 6 verse 16 says? Thus, while with a broken heart, the king commanded that Daniel be thrown into the lion's den, the king declared to Daniel, may your God, whom you serve, continually deliver you. May your God, whom you serve, continually deliver you. The king knows that Daniel's God is able to deliver Daniel. Daniel 6 verse 16. The king was happy to find out that Daniel was alive. When he found Daniel alive in the morning, he demanded that everybody recognize Daniel's God as the sovereign God. God did it again. God was pleased with Daniel and rewarded him. My friends, God always protects and rewards his faithful servants. Daniel's faithfulness played a key role in God shutting the lion's mouth. Daniel says, my God sent his angel and shut the lion's mouth, and they have not harmed me, because I was found blameless before him, and also before you, O king. I have done no harm. Daniel 6, verse 22. So Daniel found favor before God and man. Daniel did the best he could to live a life that was pleasing to God. And so must we, brothers and sisters. We must strive to live a life worthy of the name we bear, the name Christians. Bearing in mind Paul's encouragement in Philippians chapter 1, verse 27. There Paul says, only let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel of Christ, so that whether I come and see you or I am absent, I may hear of you that you are standing firm in one spirit, with one mind, striving side by side for the faith of the gospel. May we do that, brothers and sisters. May God help us to do just that. And so we will have eternal life. And if you have not yet obeyed the gospel, then we want to encourage you to follow in Daniel's steps and choose to live a life pleasing to God. And you too will receive the reward that God has in store for all his servants. In Mark 16:16, Jesus tells us how to get started. Mark 16, verse 16. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not believe will be condemned. If you wish to obey the gospel, let us know, or allow me to direct you to the nearest Church of Christ, where we will be very glad to assist you. This Bible study is also available in French and Creole on our channel. If you'd like to listen in a different language, please go to the channel and pick the language you'd like to listen to. Cette étude biblique est également disponible en français et en créole sur notre chaîne. Si vous voulez écouter dans une autre langue, rendez-vous sur la chaîne et choisissez la langue que vous aimeriez écouter. Étude biblique ça disponible tout en français et créole sur channel là. Si vous avez aimé écouter dans une autre langue, tant pis, allez sur channel là et puis choisissez la langue où vous avez aimé écouter. My friends, it is always a pleasure spending some time in God's Word with you. Please join us next time as we continue to study together. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. Until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.